welcome back to WD Magiccast for the week of November 3rd, 2024. This is episode 274. WD Magiccast, the show about the mouse, the Marvels, the galaxy, and beyond. I'm your host, Matthew Graken. In this week's episode, we will be doing a rewind episode and go way back to episode 134. My interview with Steve Lewis of Gideon's Bakehouse. This is back whenever it was the Disney Marvels podcast. Things have changed then, new name. The way that I have edited the shows and produced the shows have changed for a number of reasons, and that's kind of why I wanted to re-release and let you experience it again. This is a key episode to re-release. One, it's a popular episode, and it's a very good episode, one I'm very proud of. I could have spent hours and hours talking to Steve, and I could have just kept going, and he's such a good guy. A lot of great stories, and if you are a fan of Gideon's Bakehouse, you will love to hear this. If you haven't heard it already, if you've heard it already, listen again. You may miss something, or just go back and enjoy it. If you haven't heard it, please sit back and enjoy it. Again, one of my favorites, and definitely worth a re-listen. Make sure to join us on the socials, where we found just about everywhere at WD Magiccast. On Facebook, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, we are out there. YouTube, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. I have something special coming up in the next couple of, hopefully, days. I shot a video for it, and it's just taking me a little longer to do the editing because it's not something I've done before, so there's a learning curve there. But trust me, it's going to be really cool whenever it drops, which, again, hopefully is shortly. I'm mostly done with that. Yeah. And don't forget to check out our TeePublic shop, where you can find some really cool WD Magiccast merchandise there. Holidays are coming up. Order now. Things are on sale. Get some stuff, nice WD Magiccast items for friends, family. Great gifts, and help support your favorite podcast in the meantime. And on that bombshell, on with the show. Everyone, in one way or another, has an opinion about something. And one of those things that people have an opinion about is, what is your favorite cookie? Because there are so many varieties out there, so many different types. I have someone with me today who is not only got his opinion on cookies, but has made a living on cookies now. He, in fact, is now the Prince of Cookies, a sublime prince of the Estradic Order of Cookies, and we will get into that. Steve Lewis of Gideon's Bakehouse, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much. I forget that people see that title. It's on a business card that I never hand out, and I might have referenced it in a post every now and again. There is a secret meaning behind that, but I'm not ready to throw it completely out there yet.
Okay, so I will try and pick your brain out a little bit later about it. It's in your emails, just to warn you.
Sure. Oh, that's right. It is in the email. You send out so many emails every day, you forget that stuff's even attached to the bottom.
Yeah. What did I put on that? I put that on 5 years ago. That's still there. Got to delete that. You've had I've as I was telling you before, I looked you up on LinkedIn, and I tried to do my due diligence. I did my research, and you even gave me fair warning that you started off in a comic book shop.
Yeah, when I was a little kid, I had three things that I wanted in life. I wanted to be a musician, I wanted to own my own comic book store, and I wanted to train a great white shark. And I'm happy to say I've knocked out two of those three things. I started working in music at 15 and recorded original music, got a degree in vocal music, classically trained in guitar and piano, all that fun stuff. But I had a rough time with my hands, and after about a decade of doing that, I decided to move into phase 2 of my life goals, and I moved to Orlando originally to open up a comic book store. What I ended up doing was something called Uberbot, which was a very unique art gallery, if you will, that happened to sell comics. So a lot of what I tried to do in the early 2000s in the world of comics was change people's perceptions of how they view them. And a lot of that is completely different these days because of the Marvel movies, that they've done that work on a level I could never have hoped to do. But when I moved to Orlando, I started working for some comic shops in town, one, to understand what it was like to work a job like that, and to understand something about business. My biggest takeaway was that I wasn't a fan of comic book stores, and I mean that in a branding sense. When you're in music, branding becomes a big part of who you are. Even though I didn't really understand it as much in my youth, it became part of me in creating these stories and perceptions and making people feel certain things. And it became my takeaway that comic book stores at the time were perpetuating that stereotype that comics were for geeks and kids, at least locally here. And I wanted to kind of work to do something different. So I created this concept that was in a very high-end shopping area in Winter Park, which is a really nice part of Orlando. And
it's actually where my wife was born.
Winter Park is fantastic. So when you walked in, it was all just art and designer toys, and we would have these really great art events. But as you got further to the back, it transitioned into comics. And I was really proud of the fact that I got people that never thought they would read a comic book to obsess over, graphic novels and titles. I had, women in their 40s and 50s reading Fables and Preacher and really all these interesting books of the day. And it was a great experiment. It was a lot of fun. I think we did some very unique things there that were ahead of its time. And we used to always invite comic book artists to have art gallery shows at Uberbot, but we would ask them to show off their personal artwork, not come and do drawings of Batman and Superman. I wanted to let them express who they were as artists, so that other people can really start to look at comic art as a legitimate form of artwork. And it did very, very well. It just opened during a poor time when the economy crashed, and it left too soon.
Yeah, I mean that is a fantastic idea, and comic book age in the 90s was really at its pinnacle. It had been in years, so you kind of, not by choice, who knew what the market was going to be, kind of were just hitting it right wherever things were going, unfortunately, south, between technology and, like you said, the economy. And something as disposable as comics is, one of the things that's going to suffer quickly. And Marvel and DC both can tell you about the struggles that they had in that time.
Sure.
The fact that either of them is still around, we are quite fortunate. But yeah, as someone who's spent many hours in a comic book shop, I could, you walk into one, you kind of walk into all of them. You know how they're laid out. They got some of the high-end sculpture busts of characters in one corner, and boxes and boxes of the back issues, and then shelves of the new stuff.
And posters taped to the front window.
Yep.
And I think a lot of it kind of came from people who started comic book stores, or a lot of people who are fans of comics, not necessarily going into it with a business brain. And I connect to that. I really do. That is a very, very, very difficult industry because you're ordering things months in advance and you're trying to predict trends. And if you're wrong, you're eating it.
Yeah.
Or you've lost a tremendous amount of sales because that comic book is not reorderable, and you weren't able to get that issue out to people because you didn't predict its popularity. And it was a very stressful business. It was huge fun. I miss it every day. Not only from the comic standpoint, because I actually found that almost a gambling style ordering of trying to figure out what's going to be popular to be kind of thrilling. I really enjoyed it. I think I was pretty decent at it. And I, of course, the thing that I loved about Uberbot so much was the community it brought together. Having these art shows were just a massive amount of fun. And what I would do is one month I would feature an internationally known artist. The next month I would have a themed art show that anybody can join. And the internationally known artists would jump in on the fun just as much as a 10-year-old that did a piece for the show and got put on the wall right next to their favorite artist. And I think that created a really great connection and just a fantastic sense of authenticity in the community that I want more of in my life. Like I'd love to bring Uberbot back, but financially it's very difficult to keep something like that going all the time. It's you almost have to reinvent yourself every few months.
And that becomes exhausting and tiring in itself.
Correct.
Well,
It's funny, I've actually never talked about Uberbot on this level before. Nobody's ever asked, and you didn't really ask, but I jumped into that anyway, just because it's been on my mind lately.
No, absolutely, I love it because, like I said, this show is about all things Disney, including Marvel, which includes comics. I haven't gotten to the comic book end, but we have discussed comics from like the Uncle Scrooge comic line and some of the old stuff whenever one of my co-hosts Matt and I were discussing our top 5 DuckTales episodes. we did top 5 2017 and top 5 1987 DuckTales. So the comparison of the new and the old.
Yeah.
And the Carl Barks comics and how they influenced the two, and just how they drew inspiration from the old comic lines and how they try to bring the comic lines back and stuff like that. A lot of people don't see comic books as works of art, which they really are. These are genuine artists. These people, most of them, have gone to school in some form of style with art degrees and found themselves working at these corporations, drawing characters that a lot of people now, especially now after the movies, have come to know: Captain America and Captain Marvel, Iron Man, and whatnot, Batman, Spawn, all these different characters. Hellboy.
I love Hellboy.
Yeah,
Mike Mignola is a huge influence for me. Something funny that I do at Gideon's is I often like to go out there, and our lines are pretty long, and I love to, especially on the weekends.
That's an understatement.
Yeah, I love to thank people for waiting 5-6 hours to get into Gideon's personally. So you'll often find me at the end of that line just thanking people. And when I see them wearing comic book shirts, I ask them who the artist is. Do you know what artist drew that shirt that you're wearing? And I haven't had anybody know yet. Like, I'm waiting to have that total full-on geek art comic conversation. But I remember when I was a little kid, like picking up a Bernie Wrightston Swamp Thing comic and just in awe of that line work. And I'm happy to say that people do start to look at artists like that as true, as the artists that they are, as what they deserve. A lot of my favorite artists in comics were Disney animators that went and worked in the world of comics, like Phil Noda, who had his first art gallery show at Uberbot.
Nice.
Started off as a Disney animator. So there's to me, all of those things intertwine. When I do interviews for people that want to work at Gideon's, the conversations are so often about, what's your favorite Marvel movie? Are you a Star Wars fan? If so, what was that dark saber at the end of Mandalorian? What did that mean to you? Which says to me, did you watch Clone Wars or not? Because
Right.
I get on people. My staff will sometimes warn uh, uh, potential employees that I'm gonna drill them about Star Wars if they show up with Star Wars paraphernalia on. Uh, it's fun, and that's creativity is what we do at Gideon's Bakehouse, and that's why I love talking about creative things like comics and Star Wars. What inspires people? What's their pop culture? Because those are the things that we talk about online all the time. When I see you in line at Gideon's, I'm not going to talk to you about Gideon's unless you ask me to. I'm going to talk to you about your shirt, or where you had dinner, and where you're from. You're from Jersey, so I love to say, people that are from New York and Jersey, when you move in Orlando. I'm from Staten Island. Y'all move down here sooner or later.
3 or 4 years.
All right, I'll be waiting.
Well, trust me, my wife and I are already planning everything out. We've been looking. We've been spoiler alert for anyone who's listening to this show who doesn't know me. This is something my wife and I have talked about for 20 years that we've been married. 21 years in a couple months. And she worked in the college program. I worked down at Disney World. My first job was at the Disney store. That's how we met. And I took my first full-time job, opened up the Animal Kingdom, proposed to her outside the Animal Kingdom at 1 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night, about 11 o'clock at night on Memorial Day weekend. So there's a little personal history there for you. And it's Disney's. Like I said, we met at the Disney store here in Freehold. That unfortunately just got its papers, and they're closed now for good. It's part of my family. I've raised my kids on it. They've all been down there multiple times now. And yeah, you're right. We are planning on heading down there. So you're a local guy from up around here as well, huh?
I've been in Orlando for a long time now. So I don't necessarily classify myself as a Floridian in that I am such a brat about heat.
That's our one problem.
Yeah, I have the luxury of having a walk-in freezer at Gideon's, so I will often be outside talking to people for a while, and I only show up at night. I just boom out of the shadows I appear, but I'll still every 30 minutes to an hour take a little break to walk back and stand in my freezer for a few minutes. I have my dinners back in there. I love the cold, but I will tell you, Florida. 20 years ago when I opened up, Uberbot, wasn't really. I guess it was about 20 years ago now, or coming up on that. The idea of Gideon's was floating in the back of my head just for fun. I said earlier, I have a branding brain, so I like thinking about, if I were to do this, what would it look like? And I love talking to other people about what their hopes and dreams are in life. If you were going to open up a business, what would it look like? I've known people that want to open up a thrift store. How can we make that different? A hair salon. How can we create a different experience with that? I love those kind of I guess thought exercises, as they say. And I had a lot of fun in that arena of playing with branding when it comes to a bakery. But I never thought that Orlando could support a bakery like mine, because it wasn't at the time, very local business centric. No. It was Olive Gardens and Outbacks everywhere. But then something happened, and especially in Winter Park, where all these amazing restaurants started popping up, and the Ravenous Pigs winning all these awards, and oh my gosh, I've got to get into this place. And local businesses just started growing and thriving, and the creativity pushed everybody to higher levels of creativity. And the next thing you know, in a decade, Orlando's got the most amazing local business scene. The food here is ridiculous. The non-food restaurants are just creative and fun. Just in the retail world, people are doing cool things, and it used to be that I'd go back to New York to eat. I'd go to Philadelphia to eat.
Hmm.
There's not much there outside of a breakfast bagel sandwich that I can't get here.
Well, I was speaking to one of your neighbors about a month or so ago, and I told him to put some pork roll in their grilled cheese donuts, to kind of, get things going, especially since you have so many people from this area that live
Yeah.
down that way. That would probably be a smart business idea.
Yeah, I mean, as somebody that is outside talking to everybody and asking them where they're from, I joke when my New York accent comes out, I become Staten Island Stevie John, and I start talking like that. And it's funny because I'll just hear people talking, and I'm like, all right, where are you from in New York? Where are you from in Jersey? Because you hear the accent.
Yeah.
And they're here constantly. So let me tell you, Wawa is here. They laid the groundwork to make you feel comfortable. Being from Jersey, having a Wawa in Orlando's that's all you really need. It's like being home.
I have one right down half a mile from my street. So
Of course you do.
From my house. So I'm glad to hear that. Guys just opened up the White Castle nearby, so my wife's happy about that.
Yeah, that's been an interesting thing watching that unfold here in Orlando. People are into this White Castle thing. I'm not a fast food guy, so
I'm not a White Castle guy myself, so it's I've had it a couple times, and I'm okay with just leaving it at that.
Yeah, to each their own. But
exactly.
But yeah, I'm looking for that handmade, local, authentic experience.
It's the area has changed so much, and I don't know if it's out of necessity or people just looking to stretch their creative minds and trying to make the area their own.
Yeah, I have a theory about that. Is I think one of the glories of the internet happened artistically. Is you get to see what everybody else is doing so easily that it inspires you. And I saw that originally at Uberbot, seeing artists being inspired by what some artists in another country that they might never have seen their work, and now they're on social media, and it raises that bar constantly. Everything's about raising that bar to take that next step and just be a little bit better every day. And I think about that with my business. I think about that as an individual, and I think that seeing what other places are doing in the realm of food really, really inspires others to take their own step. So that's the internet has plenty of ups and downs, but I think the inspiration that it causes people with their creativity has birthed a lot of amazing local things.
Awesome. Well, we're planning on being down there in August, so we're gonna have to try and check some of that stuff out ourselves. So, just to move along on the comic part before getting
I warned you that if you talk to me about comics, I'm gonna go, and I'm restricting myself right now because I want to ask you like what your favorite comics are, what inspired you, and then the next thing you know, we've got a 4-hour podcast before we've even started talking about cookies.
I'm fine with that. I could easily divide this into 2 parts or 3
Break
parts.
Break it into like an 18-part series.
I'm not sure I don't know if you can actually read the paper here, but I actually have written down here.
I see that, yeah. Favorite comic book. Let's rapid fire this.
Yeah. So, what is Steve? What is your favorite comic book?
That's really, really hard to say.
It doesn't have to be an issue. It could be a whole line.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that I like Transmetropolitan. Was really influential to me. A lot of the Warren Ellis, Garth Ennis, a lot of books like Preacher, which just blew me away because I'd never expected comics to tell stories like that. But what turned me into a comic fan when I was younger, and it's just super sentimental to my heart, is I loved that original Infinity Gauntlet that birthed this phase 1 of Marvel, which has been an amazing experience for me. I remember being in the theater with my friends who know that Thanos is my boy. And at the end of the first Avengers movie, when Thanos pops out at the end credits, I was in with a group of maybe 10 people, and they all just stopped and looked at me because they knew that was a massive moment. I used to collect a lot of comic book art back when it was affordable to do such a thing. Now it's impossible. And I owned a lot of the fight pages that Jim Starlin and Ron Lim had done back in the original Infinity Gauntlet. So I had some original pages. I actually owned the origin page of the Infinity Gauntlet from Silver Surfer when he explained for the first time what the Infinity Gauntlet was. And like a dummy, I sold it because I got offered like so much money for it, which compared to what it's worth now, I got rid of it for pennies. So I like to say that I don't really regret things in life, ever forward, but that might be one of the few things that I regret. That and James Jean is an amazing artist who did all the covers for a fantastic book called Fables. And he offered me an original one of the graphic novel covers for a few $1,000s, which at the time I'm like, no, I can't really spend that money right now. I think today, because he's become such an amazing popular artist, that would be worth 1,000 times what he offered it to me for. So it was a really thrilling thing to collect original comic art. It actually opened up doors for me and opening up Uberba and being able to finance some things by selling some of that art. But it's a hobby I can't jump into anymore. I don't care. It doesn't matter how many cookies I sell in this lifetime. Comic art is expensive.
Yes.
It's become an expensive hobby.
It is. But it's a beautiful hobby, but like many collections of art, the price of it is just keeps skyrocketing astronomically, and especially since a lot of it's now on the more digital end, so you don't have that, literally people's hands. Every cell that you looked at was someone's handwork.
Oh, it's amazing to see. And I still have original comic art on my wall. I've got a Phil Noto painting behind me. In my office, I've got a lot of original pieces still framed. But I've tried collecting art is an addiction. I'm obsessed with collecting art books and things back in the day, and I've tried to really pull back on that over time.
Yeah, again, bring up my co-host Matt Leonard. He had a friend that said he was addicted to two things in his life: drugs and comic books. He said actually the comic books are more dangerous than the drugs.
Yeah, I don't drink or smoke or do drugs, so I've saved up enough money by not spending money on those things to do that.
Awesome.
But yeah, I every once in a while, I had mentioned before we started recording that I purchased the Hot Toys Thanos figure because I just couldn't resist. It's gorgeous, and I will also say too that art is an amazing investment. If you know how to do it right, I would rather buy art than put money in the stock market.
Sure.
And maybe I'll get back into that with that mindset someday. But I've got too much debt right now to do with any of that stuff.
You just kind of opened a small little.
It costs a couple bucks.
Yeah, $5, $10. Okay, what's a couple dollars here?
Mm-hmm.
We'll get into that. So let's go on. Next question was favorite character.
Favorite character in the movies or in the comics?
Let's go comics.
I really do enjoy the tragedy that is Thanos, and I think that's kind of what appealed to me. And the people who are the Marvel readers know, but the movie readers don't realize that a lot of what Thanos' motivations are for him through the comics is because he's in love with a character that is Death. Yep. So everything that he does is this motivation to be equal with Death, to show that he's equal to be her love. But she never sees him that way, and I believe at the end of Thanos' quest, the book that describes how he acquires all the gems, it ends with her rejection and his single tear coming down. And I think when I was young and reading that comic, it was just the first time that I saw that level of depth in a quote unquote villain.
Mm-hmm.
And it really fascinated me. It now we're talking gray areas instead of everything being black and white. And I really was fascinated by that. But my favorite character that's translated from comics to movies, Captain America, is just amazing. And when 9/11 happened, Captain America as a character in the comics became so relevant. Thank you, cats, for knocking over my candles. Sorry about that.
Mine was knocking down remotes in the middle of the night last night.
Cat life.
Yeah.
Captain America became so relevant because he's one of the things that I love about Marvel, and I'm not a Marvel or DC guy. I love good writers. I will follow good writers everywhere, so I don't jump into that mindset. But I do enjoy the fact that Marvel tackles a lot of those real world things, and you see today where people complain that they don't want politics in their Marvel movies, but that's Marvel. That's Marvel Comics. Like the president in Marvel Comics is the president of the day. They live in New York, they live in Chicago, they live in today's world. Marvel Comics takes place in our world, and I thought it was really interesting to see how Captain America dealt with that time in our history. And what makes him so great to me in the movies is because out of all the Marvel characters, as a Marvel reader, that Iron Man in the movies isn't the same as Iron Man in the comics, or at least the way that he used to be. But Captain America in the movies is identical to Captain America in the comics, and it's beautiful. I'm here for it. Like the Captain America Winter Soldier was just I could watch it once a week. It's so good.
So is that the answer to my next question, which is your
That's
favorite
the answer.
MCU movie?
Yes, I peeked on your sheet, so
nice segue.
Captain America: Winter Soldier. I will say, obviously, the end game that has Thanos in it and is just it. That movie exists on such a level of awesome to me that I can't even place that in the category of what's your favorite movie. It just exists on its own little pedestal. So you remove that epicness, and now we'll say Captain America: Winter Soldier.
No, and my listeners will tell you, especially the ones that have listened to many of the shows, especially when I talk about Marvel, is Marvel. People say they want the politics out of Marvel. Marvel has been political since
Captain America punched Hitler in the face.
Yeah, it's that's been their foundation. I mean, they came up with the character of Black Panther before there was a Black Panther movement, before any of that stuff. They brought in African American characters into their comic books when it wasn't a norm thing to do. That was kind of not touched on ground when they did it. And so for people to say that, like, I just had a discussion about the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and people are playing, it's too political. And for some people, it may be very political, but again, that is Marvel. And I think for me personally, I am a Marvel person. That is what sets Marvel aside from DC, is where Marvel deals with the everyday issues. Like you said, they are in New York, they are in Philadelphia, they're in Washington, D.C. They're in the real world places, where DC, they're in Metropolis and these other made up towns where they deal with issues in our world, but it's not the same as whenever it's, you're on 42nd Street. That is the 42nd Street that everyone, you go to New York, that's 42nd Street, and stuff is going down there.
Yeah. You see that in this Spider-Man video game. It's you're in New York.
So you won't see the actual inner sanctum. You won't find the sanctum there, that you find in the video game. But
they weave in a little bit. Hopefully, eventually, it'll really be there.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. Yeah. The difference between a wizard and a sorcerer is the pointy hat.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, I'm an X-Men guy. So for me, the comics, I got started with the X-Men, the Executioner Song storyline, and that's kind of what pulled me in. And growing up with dyslexia, always feeling like an outsider in
Yeah.
watching these characters who are born different and being treated different, I connected with that. Um,
Yeah, and
so
if
that's
people are bothered by social issues in comics, wait till the X-Men start showing up in the
yeah,
Marvel
right.
Universe, because that is everything that X-Men is.
Yeah,
So
it is
I'm
completely
excited
that.
for it. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I love the X-Men comics. That's, in the comic book world, that's where I always was. Never got into the Avengers as much. I bought some of them, I read some of them, but for me it was the X-Men. But like you, Captain America, how he's translated into the big screen, um, is outstanding. He is very true to the character, and just the way that he comes across, the writing that they do for him. I know, cats.
I know. They're literally fighting on my dining room table right now, where I'm talking to you. So
As
I
I'm
made
going
the
out on the
mistake
couch.
of I made the mistake of setting up our conversation during the dinner time window.
Uh-oh.
So expect an onslaught of complaints coming up soon.
Mine was at 3 o'clock in the morning. Mine was coming and sitting on my head. Where's my food? I gave you food. You can wait. Look at your stomach. It is touching the ground. You can wait an hour.
Yeah, no, I would have sold my cats to the circus had that been their habit. Luckily, they let me sleep.
Oh, lucky you. Um, and favorite MCU movie again, mine as well as Winter Soldier.
Yeah,
I
it's
did
so
a
good.
top 5 movies. We did this one right before Endgame came out, I think it was. And yeah, the me and my host, I think it was Matt Leonard at that one as well. It was Matt or Isaac. I think it was Matt on that one. And we both, mine was, Winter Soldier. It's just how well done it is between the look, the story, just everything. It's more of like a spy thriller than it is a comic book movie.
Yeah, it's a great gateway film for people that think comic book movies are silly. It's like
Yeah.
you can really it's just a good movie, you know. And then I have friends that don't really like comic book movies, but then I show them, Taika Waititi's Thor film, and
Hmm.
I'm a huge fan of quirky comedy like Flight of the Conchords and What We Do in the Shadows. I love his stuff. I love that whole family of people that he's worked with through his life, and that movie's it's just hilarious. I can't wait to see what else he's got going on.
Oh, Love and Thunder. I cannot wait for that. That and his work in The Mandalorian. He did a fantastic
Yeah.
job in there as well.
Yeah, and that's a whole nother subject of that we could probably talk ad nauseum. And James Gunn too. Oh my gosh, I love James Gunn's movies. I love
Yeah,
Slither. Way back in the day, I love horror movies. There's some great talent in there.
absolutely.
There's there's so much Marvel behind us, but yet there's no feeling that there's a lack of excitement moving forward. So I'm here for it.
Yeah, same here. Same here. They just they announcing the Black Panther, Wakanda Forever,
Hmm.
the Marvels, the new Captain Marvel movie, and
Yeah, the Eternals.
the Eternals, Black Widow, and a possible hint at Fantastic Four.
Yeah, I
So
mean that's inevitable.
yeah, I mean
Uh,
they've come out and said that they're pushing that. That's got the fast track.
right.
Um, but
Here's a
today,
little side note, a little
yeah,
Fantastic Four side note. Did you ever read Planetary by Warren Ellis?
no,
It was and this is some of the things that happened over in the DC world that was kind of interesting. Or actually, I think that was under a different label when it first came out. But it's it's a kind of a what if the Fantastic Four went dark, and it's about this group of people that are trying to uncover, their tentacles in society. It's
interesting.
it's really really a great comic that hasn't stayed in the conversation, but I feel is worth it. I still talk. I don't get the chance to read comics much anymore. I'm actually catching up on Saga right now, which has taken a hiatus. So I'm taking that moment to kind of catch up, which is also just another just fantastic book. I love Invincible, which is now on Amazon Prime, animated, and the first season just came out. Have you watched it?
No, everyone keeps telling me it's on my list. It's higher up on my list. My list
Have you
is
ever read the
probably
comic?
no. But I've heard it's really good.
It's brutal. It's great. It's great. It'll tear at your heartstrings a little bit here and there, but I think it's Kirkman's best work.
I'm down for it.
Yeah, but you got to binge watch that as soon as we finish up.
Okay, I'll put it on the list for tonight. I was watching Mortal Kombat, but I'll switch to that.
All right. Mortal Kombat.
Yeah, just for the heck of it. I'm getting one I paid for it, which since I have HBO Max, I'm not paying for movie tickets for it. So
I will say, out at Disney Springs, there's a Dolby Atmos theater. They've got one of their screens is a really well done Dolby Atmos theater with a balcony, and I love the seats, and I love sitting front row balcony. I sit in the same seat every time. I have a friend that's a movie watching friend of mine. We always have that same two seats, and I'll go see anything in that theater. And so I even though I have HBO Max, I paid the $40 for tickets for two at that screen because I love just the experience of sitting in that seat. And that I'm a big, as a music major, obviously an audio junkie, so I love that audio experience. It's a great whatever screen number it is, number 2, I don't remember. I know when I go on Fandango, I always look for the one that says Dolby Atmos. I'm like, that's it. I'm there.
There you go. Nice. Yeah, I saw the first 2 movies I saw there was when they came out was the first X-File movie, and I saw Mulan whenever it first came out there.
Yeah.
So yeah, that dating myself. We also even took my daughter to see Rapunzel there. It's a nice theater.
It's good. I'm glad to see that part of the world starting to get going again.
Yeah, unfortunately, the one by me closed down.
Oh.
So, yeah, hopefully someone buys it up and pumps some life back into it because it was a nice theater and it was ridiculously convenient. Speaking of theaters, favorite Star Wars movie? We are recording this on May the 4th, and just
that is true. I already watched The Bad Batch.
I've yet to watch. I watched the Force Awakens from its nap.
So I'm gonna go out of the box a little bit on this one, and technically this isn't a movie, but if you take the final 4 episodes of Star Wars Clone Wars and just put it on Blu-ray or 4K. That to me, obviously, Empire Strikes Back is the you can't touch that. That's like the Avengers Endgame.
Yeah.
So take that aside, and my favorite, the most emotional I think I've been watching Star Wars, the most excited as an adult was the finale of Clone Wars. The animation is incredible. They did I don't want to throw spoilers out there, for people that haven't watched that series. If you haven't, Star Wars Clone Wars is some of the best Star Wars in the history of Star Wars. It gives you so much depth. Ahsoka Tano is an amazing character that everybody hated when they first released her.
Yeah, it's weird.
And then you go all the way to that final episode, and it's stunning how that growth of that character. If anybody understands what Star Wars is, Dave Filoni is that guy. So I'm here for everything that he does, and I absolutely adore the final 4 episodes of that. So that is my favorite Star Wars movie, is the finale of Clone Wars.
I'll accept that as an answer. I will definitely accept that as an answer. And for that reason, Ahsoka is such a fantastic. She is that annoying little girl at the beginning, but the journey that she goes through is remarkable, and you can't help but fall in love with that character. And whenever they brought her into Mandalorian, I was so excited. A little disappointed wasn't Ashley Eckstein reprising the role, but at the same time, just the fact we have this character now in the non-animated world, and we're going to get more of her, and just bring it.
Right, and a lot of the reason why I'm constantly telling people to watch like Clone Wars and Rebels is because I want them to fully feel Ahsoka Tano on Mandalorian. If you haven't watched those series, that episode was minimal to you,
Yeah.
compared to how it is for someone that's watched her literally grow up over these seasons of this television show. So I'm out there doing my part. I'm telling every stranger I meet, hey, you got a Star Wars shirt. Have you watched Clone Wars? Why not? Let's talk about it.
Yeah, it is a fantastic series. I mean, just like any series, there's the highs and the lows of it, but there is so
Right.
much lore that it brings into it and expands the universe so much further than the movies could. Like I've said about the Marvel limited series, you're not limited to 2.5, 3 hours of storytelling. You have 6 hours, you have series, you have multiple seasons to be able to tell stories and expand characters, who these characters are. The more you know about a character and the more that you learn about the character, the more vested you can become in them and understand them. And again, reason why I like the Marvel stuff is because there is so much character building that I find in them. That one of my favorite X-Men comics. There's no action whatsoever. It is a bunch of them playing football and talking outside and just letting loose and being people.
Yeah.
That whole book was pretty much just that. And
Yeah, I think that's why I'm enjoying the Marvel TV shows so much, is because I actually want to take a moment to slow down and get to know, how the Winter Soldier is dealing with not being the Winter Soldier, and Sebastian Stan is so amazing in that role that he brings these flashes of emotion that hit you in the gut. Like it's been. I want more of that. Give me
yeah,
a season two.
there's been rumors. There's
Yeah,
rumors.
of course. Yeah, and it's funny because they can cheekily say, yeah, we said that there was only one season of Falcon and Winter Soldier, and they're right, because season two would be
Two
Captain
be
America
captain.
and Winter
Yeah,
Soldier.
true. True.
So,
Uh,
yes,
yeah, and meeting Sam's family and seeing what
yeah,
they went through, and the resentment that the sister has for him not being there to 5 years. It wasn't his fault, but just you know, she had to carry on whenever no one was around.
yeah.
It's beautiful, and it's some of the best storytelling that I've seen in a while out of
The
stuff.
best the best way to describe it is that's storytelling.
Yep,
You know, it's
exactly.
not all in service of a big action scene. It's trying to give you those moments to connect with not just the main characters but everyone around them.
Indeed, indeed. Um, Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I saw on your profile that you did graphic artwork
Yeah, I mean,
or dabbled.
out of necessity, when I started working for, the comic book shops in town, and realizing that the best way to improve those businesses was start to, move away from signs that had Times New Roman, and
Hmm.
you're in a shop that celebrates art. Let's get artistic in that branding. So I started doing a lot of just design work for, local comic book stores that I had worked for, which opened up the door for me to do some stuff, for bigger brands, and just have some fun with it. I did start a little design company called Uberbot Jones, and I forget about that. And its purpose was to help other local businesses improve their branding. And I did that because a lot of people were just asking me for help. I will tell you, I don't feel like I'm fantastic at graphic design in any stretch of the imagination. I don't think there's anything that I've done that I'm like, yeah, that's good stuff. I do my best. I do my best. And I really love doing it. Branding is my obsession, and I think that comes through very much especially at Gideon's Bakehouse at Disney Springs. But it's also super personal when you work on design work, and when you do it for other people, it's rough. You know, what I learned that is a lot of small businesses that are not good at branding aren't good at branding because they don't know what good branding is. So when you present it to them, you might do a print ad for them, and they want it to be hot pink and have the phone number be the largest thing on the ad, as if that's what people look for in an ad is, oh, look, what's this big phone number? Let me read about this business. So if they made those mistakes in the past, there's a good chance they were going to continue making them because that's what they wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a very frustrating experience for me, but I learned a lot from it. And at the end of the day, if you learn from something, it's worth it.
You try to learn from every little thing. Even your failures, you learn more from failing than you do from succeeding.
Sure. Yeah, some school had asked me to. So they had commented on something I posted on Facebook and said, "What an amazing story of failing upwards." And I'm like, I can talk about that for a long time. I can give you lectures on failure. But I do try not only to learn from my mistakes, but from the mistakes of those around me, and try to move forward in life with the simple goal of just being a good man. And that's easier said than done. But it's always in the back of my head. How can I be a good gentleman? The difference between a guy and a gentleman. I try to be on the latter, not the former.
I get it.
There's a whole different subject.
Oh yeah. Today in ethics class, people, we will be discussing.
I'm sure that wasn't on your sheet of questions.
Who cares? Like I told you, I am good for. You want to spend the next 3 days talking about comic books, so we could go back to that. The listeners might get a little weary, but they can fast forward. Some of them may enjoy it.
You can tag it, like, if you don't want to hear Steve talk ad nauseum about Thanos, skip ahead to this number.
Speaking of Thanos, again, something I've said, best villains are the ones that you can kind of understand, and you kind of may not necessarily agree with, but you can understand their point of view. And I can't say that there's a better villain than Thanos in that aspect, because it is you know where he's coming from. You understand his intentions. And it's like you can't go, well, he's not completely wrong. It's just, okay, your method I don't completely agree with, but I get what you're coming from.
I will tell you that with Thanos, and this is another kind of deep one, is Thanos' history in the comics is vast. Mm-hmm. And he's done these amazing things from the Cosmic Cube to Infinity Gauntlet. But in the end, and this was the big ending of Infinity Gauntlet, what his true vulnerability is his own insecurity that he doesn't believe that he's good enough.
Right.
And that rung a huge bell with me when I was a kid. It's like that's all of our fight in the back of our head is, are we really good enough to do what we want to do? That was a huge thing for me, deciding to go from being a 286 square foot bakery to the international stage out at Disney Springs, is, fighting back those insecurities of, am I good enough to play ball on this level? Am I going to mess it up? And you go through life trying to put that in the back of your head as much as you can if you're being real with yourself.
Right.
And that is Thanos to me, is that character that doesn't overcome. He still has that issue, and I'm trying to be better than Thanos.
Yes. Well, you're not trying to eliminate half the population of the universe. Let's hope so.
No, that might significantly affect my ability to move cookies. At this point.
Your P&L will not do well.
Yeah,
with that.
wouldn't appreciate that.
So where did the idea of cookies and cake come from? You mentioned that it was in the back of your head for a while now, but what really made you say, you know what, I am going to do this?
I mean, cookies has been a part of my life for, my childhood to adulthood. And the Gideon's chocolate chip cookie that we sell today was a 15-year journey for me of just trying to create a chocolate chip cookie that I wanted to enjoy. It was just a selfish goal of I wanted to eat a good chocolate chip cookie, and like we talked about earlier, at the time there wasn't a lot of local options for great bakeries and things. I can go to the grocery store and get a chocolate chip cookie. Get some Toll House and bake a chocolate chip cookie, but I wanted better. So it was a 15-year journey of just tinkering. I tend to bake when I'm sad. If I'm having a rough time in life, if I need to tune things out, that's my escapism was baking. So I've always joked, even though it's not a joke at all, that the secret ingredient in a Gideon's cookies are my tears. But it's also a very sentimental item for me. My biggest challenge in going out to Disney Springs, if I'm being perfectly transparent, was knowing that I was opening up myself to a whole new level of critique, and seeing, having people remove that local feeling and just view my product potentially as some giant faceless thing, which it is not. I am a single owner business. I don't have any partners or investors. That cookie is super personal to me. So I'm hurt when someone says this sucks.
Because it is personal.
It is. It's personal. It's like it doesn't happen often, thank goodness. I don't read Yelp reviews, and I try to stay away from poisonous things. But sometimes people will tag me on Instagram and say, "Hey, I just had Gideon's peanut butter cold brew, and I'm here to report that it's terrible." and I'll respond. I'm like, "Look, I'm sorry you didn't enjoy it. I spent 6 years tinkering with that and really gave you the best that I know how to give you. So I'm sorry you didn't appreciate the artistry behind that drink." 9 times out of 10 they'll delete the post. When and I think a lot of that is because they realize, oh, wait a minute, this is a person. Gideon's Bakehouse is a person. Yes, there's 150 of us behind the scenes making it happen. I don't have the ego to tell you that all of what is Gideon's Bakehouse is purely, me. My staff works really, really hard. But I've said this before, that I really do feel like Gideon's is when you're at home making a dinner for your friends that are coming over that night, and you spend all day doing something that you hope makes them happy, and then you sit and you talk to them and you enjoy it with them. That's how I view that relationship. So obviously, when someone sits at your dinner table and tells you you're awful, it hurts your feelings.
Oh yeah, it say kills the mood. I don't think a lot of people realize that is the store is you. It is your, there, especially to go from a smaller intimate store where you're just more of a local type of store off to the side. You're not in the middle of the vacation kingdom of the world.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a lot of guts to do that, to just open up a store. And like you said, put yourself out there. These are your products. These are something, stuff that you created. You and your staff take this whole thing personally. It's another thing to take it and put it in the middle of literally where the entire world goes. You have people from England, from Spain, from China, from Japan, Canada, Mexico, Brazil, obviously the United States, all converging at this place. And you are vulnerable. You are out there to their critiques, to their experiences. What an American experiences in a cookie, to what someone from England, to what someone from Brazil experiences in a cookie are very vastly different.
Mm-hmm.
So to take that blind leap, I congratulate you for that. It is stronger men have failed.
It's scary.
Yeah, it is
really,
definitely.
it does keep you up at night. I when I get negative feedback on via email, at this point, a lot of people know that I answer all the emails, that I run the social media. It tends to be at like 11:40 at night, right before I'm about to go to bed, and then it's in my brain all night.
And then just sits there.
Restless sleep, and it's it is difficult, but it's also new for me. So hopefully, there's a part of me that thinks, okay, my skin will harden up, but then there's another part that doesn't want it to.
No,
I don't want it to not to lose my perception of my cookie. I don't want to lose any of that. So I mean, it is what it is. We do live in a culture where things have to be reviewed and talked about, and I made a post recently on Instagram that talked about Uberbot. I tend to be extra sentimental on Sunday mornings, and you can catch me making a pretty personal post sometimes on Instagram. And I talked about how, to me, the Uberbot and Gideon's are one and the same. I don't see Gideon's Bakehouse as a bakery. I see it as an art gallery, and not just because we have art on the walls and I have amazingly creative friends that have done some beautiful work in that store that I'm just amazingly proud of. But the cookies, food is art. Art is subjective.
It's true.
But you don't see people going to art galleries, walking from painting to painting and reviewing it on social media, or at least not that I've seen. So
what was Picasso thinking whenever he painted? Really, he used that fan brush for that part?
Yeah, it's a little weird to me in that, because I'm the only one that does my social media every 15 seconds. Does Gideon's live up to the hype? It's a lot of pressure. Yeah. And I hope so. And I reply to people. I'm like, I hope it does, because I really did my best. It's like I to put something forward, and my team worked really hard to create it. And everything we do is completely handmade and scratch made. There's nothing off the Cisco truck that finds its way into Gideon's Bakehouse.
Good.
It's all very personal, homemade. There's no corners cut, so it carries a lot. There's a lot inside of each cookie.
I'm sure there is, and I think a lot of people also don't realize that particularly in Disney Springs, that majority of Disney Springs is not owned by Disney. It is either other corporations or individual businesses.
Right.
You being the example. Like I said, I spoke to Everglades Donuts several weeks ago. They're their own little thing. They are not Disney. They are their own thing. The Rainforest Cafe. You have mom and pop shops. You have a lot of other businesses that have invested themselves into that property because it makes sense, again, because so many people go there to, for the exposure. Mm-hmm. But you also put yourself at a large risk because of how much you are exposing your business. And again, for being a sole proprietor, I applaud you for taking that leap and building something that now has hour long. You have to have a virtual queuing system to be able to get in to buy a product. It astounds me, and I applaud you that you've are at this point.
Thank you. It was not, I'm used to lines for Gideon's at the original location. It could take up to 90 minutes to get a cookie on a weekend, especially if we were doing a big event. Mm-hmm. So I knew there would be lines, and I knew it would be more, given that it's a theme park. But yeah, a 5-6 hour wait, virtual wait, I should always say. A lot of people will post, waited 8 hours to get a cookie. I can't believe I waited. Who would wait this long? Well, you're really going to a dinner and shopping and enjoying yourself. The actual physical wait in line averages 15 minutes. If I'm talking up front, maybe 20, 25 minutes. But the actual physical wait is pretty small. And the people who experience it, just since we've been talking, I get feedback that's popping up on my phone, and I've gotten 2 or 3 people just talking about the queue and how much they appreciated how easy it was and how wonderfully my team handles such a massive amount of people. You know,
Yeah.
the people that are upset with me are the people that didn't do it. They just don't, you know, I'll get people that'll say, you know, my family, I'm not going to wait 4 hours for a cookie. What are you going to do to make this right? And there's nothing I can do. I mean, I do offer them a pre-order option for the original location if they want to go do that. They can grab and go. I can't handle pre-orders at the new location. It's too high traffic to be able to handle that extra volume. So it's a grab and go, first come first serve, and it's been fun. You know, everybody enjoys it. I'm so lucky to have such a skilled staff out there. I mean, Gideon's at Disney Springs would not exist without Patrick McKinney, who is a well-established name out at Disney Springs, having his hand in the opening of the Boathouse and T-Rex and Polite Pig, and his people followed him to me because he's such a great leader, and I didn't have the growing pains of trying to figure out how to deal with the volume because I have this amazing cast of characters behind me that have that experience. And I'd say that on day one when we opened, we adjusted to the crowd in 15 minutes and have been the same ever since.
Awesome. One of my friends was just down there, my friend Brian, and I did have to explain how the system worked. He it's like, well, where do I do this and where do I do it? Well, you have to get into the virtual queue, and because he got there late at night. I was like, you're not getting in there now. So he did the next day, and he got some of the cookies, and he got the red velvet cake. And first thing he had was the cake. He sent me pictures of it, and he said it was fantastic. Then he later had the cookie, and he said it was also amazing, probably one of the best cookies he's had. So kudos to you. You know, coming firsthand from one of my friends, saying how good the product is and the experience. You sent me pictures of the inside. I guess my next question is, where did the name Gideon come from?
I am a collector of old books, and must have been 20 years ago now. It was during the Uberbot days that I was at an estate sale, and I bought a collection of 1800s printed books. And when I started going through them all, I found an old cookbook that had handwriting in it. And when you collect books, you know, from the 1800s, handwriting is a rare thing. Mm-hmm. And so it caught my attention. And it was a little kid that was writing in an old cookbook because he wanted to be a baker when he grew up. And there were little character scribbles in it. And the name that was scribbled at the back was Gideon, just Gideon. And the date the book was published was 1898. So that book left my brain a long time ago. And I was talking to one of my closest friends, Michael Reyes, is now the art director at Gideon's Bakehouse, and draws all the amazing characters that we have so much fun talking about their stories. And you know, we joke that the gargoyle on the roof is our child together. But we were talking years ago about, like I was saying, like what would happen if I did open a bakery? What would it look like? And he reminded me of that book. And he says, you know, nobody cares about your bakery. Open up this kid's bakery. Nobody cares about Steve's Bakehouse. I don't care about Steve's Bakehouse. I loved the sentimental aspect behind, like, paying tribute to this lost little kid. I'm one of those people that I love antiques and like old photos, daguerreotypes, and I just wonder, like, who are these people? You know, what is their life all about? So this is a grand extension of that, and it's also why we look the way we do. You know, the thought process was, what would this creepy little kid's bakery look like? Because it's kind of creepy to read, you know, these old words from, you know, 100 plus years ago. And the original Gideon's, you know, I opened up, you know, with no money. I had $800 in the bank when I started a pop-up, and had an amazing experience as a pop-up, which is why Gideon's exists today. But I took every penny I had to try to build out that space to tell that story. And the original Gideon's looks like also like the Disney Springs one, an old bookstore, but inspired by artists like Edward Gorey, and the Haunted Mansion is. How could you not find that inspiring? When I was a little kid, Haunted Mansion was my favorite thing at Disney. I'm that kid. So the original Gideon's has a chandelier that hangs over the cookie case that used to hang in the Haunted Mansion.
Really?
And we have a piece of the old cemetery gate from the Haunted Mansion as well that we got our hands on when they renovated it. One of the contractors sold us a couple of pieces on the cheap.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So that vibe and that feeling is there, and it threw people off when we first opened up. There's hardly any bakery items on display at Gideon's Bakehouse. It's 99% antiques and books. It looks like an old bookstore.
Yeah, this was actually really right into my next question, was the decor being unlike any other bakery was your inspiration. So you're saying it comes from this kid, and how do you go from cookies into a library or having cookies in a library?
Yeah, I think the original store, I just wanted books. There wasn't so much a theme to it. I just wanted a bookshelf, and I wanted books, and I had a few weeks to build it out. Not a lot of thought behind it. Gideon's at Disney Springs was the full experience.
Right.
That is me going, okay. I remember lying in an MRI machine for 45 minutes, and I'm one of those people that has a really hard time shutting my brain down, and I have a difficult time with presence. And there's something about an MRI machine that you're forced to stay still.
You can't move, yeah.
And then I just started seeing these curved bookshelves, and what would happen if this bookstore just kept growing over time. And we have this whole history of Jonathan Lindworm, this photo that we found on the walls that really inspired us to tell a story. And let's face it, that's what makes us such a great combination with Disney, is our love of storytelling and experience. And I remember sitting down with them in the very early stages and saying, I don't want people to just get a cookie. I don't ship, I don't deliver. I obviously have no desire for you to just have the cookie. I wanted people to want to go inside. The door's always closed. What's in there? I want to see what's in there. Mm-hmm. I want to feel like I've stepped into another world. And I suffer from perfectionism, and I don't mean that in a lofty way. It's not a positive. It means I'm never happy with anything that I do. I beat myself up too much. I'm way too critical of myself. Nothing's ever good enough. Gideon's at Disney Springs is good enough. It actually surpassed that thought that was in my head in that MRI machine. It turned out better in reality than it was in my mind. And that's never happened to me in my life before. And a lot of that is because, my two of my best friends, Mike, our art director, and Sandra is an amazing sculptor and has a keen sense of decor. We went in that store over just a weekend and did the whole thing. Put all those books on that shelves, did all that decor. Mike drew these little characters and we framed them on the walls, and it was an epic experience that just was right. And that's super special to me. Like I want to be in that building all the time. I don't want anybody else to be there. I want to be in there by myself. I loved it in the few days before we opened. I was just playing music, and I'm sitting there with my laptop, and the flames are up at the counter, and it was just one of those moments. I think it's a rare thing in life where you feel like something is just right, and there's no questioning it. There's no hesitation. You are where you're supposed to be and doing what you're supposed to do, and that's an amazing feeling. So that now has become an amazingly sentimental thing for me. Gideon's is not some building that we hired some company to theme out and bring in all these books and antiques. it's us, it's what's inside of my brain. It's an extension of me. It's my artistic friends who we all have the very same, way of thinking when it comes to art and creativity. And we did something super super special in that space that I like I said earlier, I have a problem with presence, but the only thing that really gets me is when I turn around that corner right where the boathouse is,
Hmm.
and I can see the gargoyle on that roof, and it brings me that ping of joy that you chase in life, and it keeps pinging. I
Oh
don't think
wow.
it'll ever get old. I
I,
love
I
that guy.
I can't imagine the feeling and the gratification that you must have, especially right before you opened and you just sat there and you looked around and just between the labor, the idea, and just realized that this how surreal it must have been that this is happening, that this is exactly what you imagined or better, as you were just saying. Um, that is that's wonderful.
Well, there was a
Um,
lot of weight on my shoulders that was
of
self-imposed.
course, of course.
I'm a single owner business out at Disney. I'm easily the poorest business owner out there. I love that we were given the opportunity to not only be there, but to represent the Orlando food scene on property. I if I hope to see that happen again with other business owners like me, we can't fail. It has to be that full experience. It has to be run efficiently. It has to be good at what it does. So I did my best to take the steps, not only operationally to hit our requirements and go well beyond that, which we've been doing and dealing with these giant crowds every day, but also to make sure that it was visually an amazing experience that was iconic and something that things remember, and that the food was the best that we knew how to put out there, and the being well received out there has really lit me up in a multitude of ways. And one is I'm just excited to come up with new flavors and ideas. We've got just this month alone doing something that I've wanted to do since day one. And 2 years ago I had a 7-10 employees. Now there's
Mhm.
150 of us.
Wow.
So it gives me that opportunity. I've got an amazing uh, executive pastry chef, Christy Carlucci, overseeing the production kitchen, and it's great to be able to say, "Hey, let's do this," and boom, it's in the works. And I think that level of opportunity and the creativity is great, but also I've never been able to sell merchandise before, and I don't mean that from I sell, you make money selling merchandise. I'm excited. I get so excited when a new T-shirt shows up or when a Gideon sticker is there. I love printed material. I love that. That's the branding guy in me that wants to have a little vinyl figure of that gargoyle and wants to have a limited edition T-shirt and artist print of Stuart Valencia that we did last month. I adore that guy so much, and that was the first. I don't know if you saw the Florida uh, celebratory cookie we did last month. We called it the Stuart cookie, and it's a orange chocolate chip pecan cookie, and the cookie itself was wonderful, very just bright flavors. It was very unique, limited edition cookie, only available last month. But we released the cookie with a character and a story, which was this wondrous a little boy named Stuart Valencia, who ate so many oranges, including the seeds, that his head turned into a giant orange.
Oh, geez.
And he's creepily adorable. And the menu that we give outside to everybody waiting on our line had Stuart on it. We did a limited edition T-shirt, and on our website just through the month we were taking orders for an artist print of that the artist Michael Reyes signs, and those are shipping out this month. And that's art gallery stuff that I get to do. And again, if you really pay attention to how Gideon's is, a lot of how I view everything is artistic in its the way it's released. We have cookies that are only available in the morning. We have a hot cookie hour that's only available at night. I do a different limited edition cookie every month. When it's gone, it's gone. There's some slices of cake and secret items that never, ever, ever return. They're just something that we do once for fun, and that's it. And I love that exclusivity of items. It's also a necessity because I'm a physically small bakery, so I can't have everything all the time.
Right.
So it's a way to have variety, but also have that feeling of collectability, like, ooh, I got it.
Yeah.
And it's the best of both worlds for me. It's the only way I can do it because of my limited space, but it also plays into that feeling that I love of collecting art.
But this goes back to what you were saying, how Gideon and Uberbot are in some ways the same.
Yeah, one couldn't exist without the other.
No.
So, I'm super lucky that so many members of our community are still, are Uberbot people that are now Gideon's people, and that store is theirs. Gideon's is theirs. Uberbot was theirs. Anybody that shopped on at the original store and posted about it on Instagram, Gideon's at Disney Springs is theirs. It happened because of them. That's the only that craze for those cookies is what put us on that radar. So it's just everything that's Gideon's isn't just personal for me. I think it's personal for a lot of the community that has been involved in a lot of what we did back at Uberbot. And when I say we, I mean those same people. That's where my art director had his first art show at Uberbot. That's where we met, and we were instantly fast friends. Sandra, who did all of that interior design and a lot of the, even sculpted all the cookies that are in the cases, the little cloches and things that we have in there. They were at Uberbot with me, so It's been a journey for all of us to go through this. It's been really exciting.
It's one crazy ride.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a loyal person, so I like to keep the same people around me, and even with my leadership team now, I know that the people that really work close with me every day are going to be there. They're just going to be there. We're all stuck growing old together. And there might be another thing that comes down the line, that
you never know.
They're a part of. So just like the transition of Uberbot to Gideon's, there might be. I can't stay static and do the same thing forever. I'm going to be eventually excited to come up with some new things. Can't tell you what they are yet. I don't know, but that's how life is. I tend to have different careers in a sense, and hunt for different experiences to have personally. But that's not to say I would ever walk away from what I'm doing now. It's just an addition. What else can we add to this experience?
It keeps growing. It just keeps growing like a flower. It doesn't stay the small little thing. It grows and blossoms.
Indeed.
Speaking of growing and blossoms, I hate the tradition because it's just such a beautiful story and sentimental. Even for me on this show, my friend Matt Leonard, who's one of my co-hosts that's on every so often, I've known him since, my gosh, 2005, 2004. We just like you and Mike, we were co-workers. We worked at Babies R Us together, and we just instantly connected. And we joke around. We're kind of like the characters from MASH. We get that instant connection with each other. And he's moved off to Connecticut now, but we're still close. I have him on my show. We keep him involved. He gives me ideas. We discuss stuff. My friend Isaac, who's another co-host of mine, I met him more recently, but still maybe at this point 7 years ago. But I like having these people. These are people that I like having around me, and we get along. So I just naturally want to bring them in and work with them. I think we work well together. I haven't heard otherwise. So I completely get that. I completely understand.
There's such a special trust in that, and that's a hard thing to really, really come by. unconditional love. What is that? And that's family. That's your closest friends, and you don't have expectations from people like that. You love them for what they give you, and don't demand that they owe you anything. It just is. It's just there.
Yeah. Are you available? Yes. Okay, great. Let's do this. Are you available? No. Okay, then. All right. Next time.
Well, despite the fact that I'm like crazy chatty, my default is not speaking. I'm very internal and very much a quiet, private person. I'm not very social. I use the word introvert a lot, but a lot of people think that introvert means socially awkward. What it means really is that I get drained being around people, and it's hard. My staff knows that if I'm out at Gideon's at Disney Springs on a Saturday night, to leave me alone on Sunday.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean don't talk to don't text me and don't email me. I don't want to physically talk.
Right.
I deal with my work on Sundays. That's my catch-up day, and I'm just trying to stay in the shadows and recharge.
You don't have like a little like walking stick and a black cape, do you?
I refuse to answer that question.
Yeah, I get it. You ask. Probably just
I really do
everybody.
I love capes so much. I'm just going to put that out there. I really love capes. I really want to put the entire staff in capes or druid robes was the original thought process, but capes are hot in Florida. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and particularly dealing with food products, then you got other things dealing with there too.
And I'm sorry, I cut you off because the word capes came into my head and I just got excited. Apologies.
No apologies. I was going to say, you asked just about everyone that I was in high school with this. I was that quiet kid in the corner. So here I do, talking for a living. But let's transition back to the cookies, because it is about the cookies, and they are massive. How big are these cookies?
I call them almost half-pound cookies because the weight of the ingredients changes. Obviously, like a chocolate chip and a cookies and cream don't weigh the same. So when we top them, there's going to be a difference in the weight. The dough itself weighs the same across the board, but the toppings alter the weight a little bit. They're sizable. It's a little bit of my challenge as a business owner is I'm really giving you 4 cookies for the price of one, depending on what your perspective is on what cookies should cost. And I don't think people are used to that sometimes is when people don't know who we are, they'll be like, what, $6 for a cookie? I'm like, well, it took me 24 hours to make, and or it took half dozen or dozen people 24 hours to make because it goes through so many hands, and it's 4 servings, so it's actually per pound. Our cookies are amazingly affordable for being a scratch-made, handmade, ingredient-filled product. Like there's more chocolate chips in one bite of a Gideon's cookie than the entirety of the average store-bought cookie by far. So
I've heard that from a number of people that it's just loaded with goodness. It's not just a cookie with a little bit of toppings.
And I want it to be a value. It's hard for people to see it sometimes because it's such a new world to have these giant cookies. It's definitely something that seems to be growing now, but it's a newer thing. And I find it a little bit fascinating because you can go to the mall and spend that much on a pretzel,
right?
Which costs almost nothing in ingredients and takes little time to make comparatively. But I personally think that there's a lot of value to what we do. It's a lot of internal conversation of how can we keep healthy because our margins are so small.
Yeah, well, So far, so good. Knock on wood. Everything
Yeah.
is going well, and the cakes are also pretty big too.
Yeah, I love giant cakes. So again, that plays to wanting to offer value. Three people are going to eat a slice of cake. I mean, I can eat a whole slice, especially you mentioned earlier the red velvet. That's one of my babies. The newer key lime pie cake. Oh, I eat a lot of my own products. That's why I was at the gym before we had our conversation today, because I got to keep that balance. But yeah, the cakes are giant. A whole Gideon's cake can weigh up to 10, 11 pounds, and we
Yay.
slice it into 10 for the shop. So it's a lot.
That's a big. I had dogs that size at one point. Wow, that's that's beautiful.
Yeah,
That's how I look at it. That is beautiful.
yeah, and the cakes also take 24 hours to prepare. Our cakes are so soft that you have to freeze the layers before you frost it, or they'll rip to pieces. So there's a lot of steps involved in it. In the early days, we'd sell out a lot, and people would be like, "Why don't you just, make more?" Like, we are. But it's not going to be ready till tomorrow.
Oh,
And the original Gideon's is so small, we just ran out of space to put stuff. And now at least, the new location has the hindsight of the original location to understand how to build a space for storage better. So we do really well over there in keeping pretty well stocked throughout the day.
well, I was looking on the website. You have the hours for the original place, saying it's from this time to this time, or until we run out.
Right.
Which
Yeah.
to me
There's
makes perfect
still
sense. That's a good way
there's
of
still
explaining it.
limitations. It's rare now because we got a Gideon's van that can resupply midday. And there's just more product than there used to be, and cookie bites and things. We might be sold out of cookies, but we might still have cake and cookie bites. So it's rare that it's a full sellout, but it can push it sometimes because you can't predict. The cookies even take a few hours to bake and settle before we could sell them.
Mhm.
So if you get a big rush in a day, the cookies don't magically appear. There's
Yeah.
a lot of logistics to the way when you try to do things handmade and authentic. It's tough. It's tough to juggle it all.
It takes time. It's an art form. Again, going back to that, it truly is an art form to hand make and handcraft something. What, be it a chair, a painting, a cookie or cake. In this aspect, it is an art form, and it takes time, passion, love to produce that in of quality.
You speak the truth.
So where do you come up with these ideas of the next flavor of cookie or flavor of cake, and who gets to try them?
I was just joking with my trainer today. He gets to eat a lot of the tests and rejects, so it's funny to bring them to the gym. We all, it's some things are a fun collaboration of like what would be a fun cake to do for this weekend. A lot of it's tests. I was at the production kitchen today, throwing out some ideas for something to do next month, and there's been some things like Stewart's cookie, the orange chocolate chip cookie. I'm not a fan of fruit and desserts. So, but I wanted to overcome and do something that I wanted to eat. I'm actually team vanilla, but we've got chocolate everywhere at Gideon's Bakehouse.
Mm-hmm.
So how could I introduce things that were interesting to me, like a chocolate cookie? So sometimes it's just a challenge, and the Stewart cookie took a few months of just playing with ratios and trying to dial it in, and then it becomes a question of how to make it look interesting and Instagram ready, and not look like the other cookies, which can sometimes be tough. And then some. I remember we have a Santa's White Christmas cookie that we do in December, and I remember writing just down on a little piece of paper, it should be this, and this, and sending that over to the production kitchen, and on the very first try, boom, awesome cookie. And I hate white chocolate, and I love that cookie. Because here's a weird confession of a bakery owner. I'm not a fan of sugar. And we don't use a lot of sugar at Gideon's Bakehouse. Our desserts are rich. They're not sweet. Cotton candy is sweet. That's a whole different flavor profile. But we're very buttery. And I only use mostly dark chocolates and some semi-sweets. There's not a single piece of milk chocolate anywhere in Gideon's Bakehouse because it's too sweet. It throws off the balance of what I'm trying to do with the cookie. So white chocolate is tough for me because white chocolate is really sweet. It's got so much more sugar in it than any other chip that I would use. That was a tough one to find balance. And I actually found balance through the bitterness of coffee. There's coffee in the Santa's White Christmas cookie.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
It is. It was one of those things that could have been just awful, and it was. I think it's become one of our most popular cookies of the year. It's one of the most talked about, and not just because we sprinkle a little bit of edible glitter on top, and it just looks ridiculously cool.
I saw a picture of it. It looks fantastic, and when I'm down there, when I move down there finally in December, I'll be able to hopefully get in line and get one. Who decides the cookie of the month?
I decide the cookie of the month.
Leave it to the boss, of course.
Yeah. I mean, there'll be times where it's we'll decide in the office based on availability. Like we have a weird problem at Gideon's in that we move a lot of cookies, we move a lot of product. And we tend to, on more than a few occasions, exhaust the supply of that product in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So this has happened to us with white chocolate. We
recently with peanut butter, yeah.
It just recently happened with the peanut butter chips that we used. There was just no more, and we had to wait a couple weeks to get it back to full strength. So I'm even going to be splitting up. We do have a couple of cookies that are limited edition that have white chocolate in them that used to be back to back, and I'm going to have to move it around so that we can break up our usage of white chocolate and not risk reducing the supply that drastically in the United States.
I'm sure other places will thank you for that.
Yes, and it's funny, people ask me constantly why I don't ship, and I can barely supply Central Florida with enough because of all the issues that we run into. I couldn't imagine having a national audience in the snap of a finger.
Yeah, well, I had some friends. I was talking to you today. They go, tell them I want him to ship to New Jersey. I want him to ship here. I'll mention it, but he's not going to do it.
No, I'm not. I'm super bratty about it sometimes, but you got to think of it logistically. One, I have a 4,000 square foot warehouse that supplies my current 2 locations, and it is maxed out. So if I'm going to open up shipping, I need to invest in a whole nother facility, and that's a lot.
Yeah,
that's a lot of money. 2, I sell almost half-pound cookies, and the only way to get a true Gideon's experience is to overnight it. Can you hear that music?
Yeah.
So my cats will often turn on the HomePods in the house. Hey Siri, turn off all the music. So sorry about that.
Hey, they got good taste.
They legit tap the top of the HomePod and we'll just sit next to it and listen to music. This one is a big fan of Queen. He likes Queen.
Nice.
And Vincent is a big into Ella Fitzgerald. So we get some diversity going on over here.
Good choice.
Sorry, going back to that, the weight of the cookies is a lot. So if you're going to overnight, say 6 cookies to New York, I've overnighted cookies to New York. The shipping was $90. It's just a lot,
Yeah.
And so there's the weight, there's the logistics. And then there's the fact that I'm obsessed with experience. I can't control your experience through the mail. I'm not obsessed with money. Like, I'm not doing this for money. I do this for experience. And part of the Gideon's experience is, one, the cookie, and I lecture this about my staff with my staff all the time. Is the menu is one part of it. The atmosphere of Gideon's Bakehouse is the second part of it, and we are the third. We're talking to people. We want to get to know you. When people reach out to me on social media all the time and they say, I'm finally coming to Orlando. I cannot wait to visit Gideon's Bakehouse. I've been following you on social media since 2016. My response is always, we can't wait to meet you. And that's authentic. Like, we cannot wait to learn about who you are and get you to learn a little bit about who we are and just have that conversation. That doesn't exist over email. It doesn't exist through a website. It doesn't exist through the mail. So a lot of times when people push me about shipping, and trust me, a lot of people will constantly ask about it, the final answer is because I don't want to. Because that's not what Gideon's Bakehouse is, and there's people on my own team that are like, well, maybe you should have like a little window where we can do this or that, and there might someday be an item that is perfectly shippable, that is an amuse-bouche of what Gideon's Bakehouse is, that just teases you, maybe, but that full experience in those cookies and that cake is only happening at the counter.
Awesome. I makes perfect sense to me. I mean, to bring it back to Walt Disney, he was kind of the same way, that it was about the experience and about the people. It wasn't about a prepackaged, something that you could produce quickly. It was personal. And so it makes perfect sense to me. Let me hit you with some rapid fire stuff.
And it makes sense to my cat, by the way.
Yeah, good. Yeah. If it makes
really
sense to a cat, then that's the final answer. I can't get you to explain the title, The Sublime Prince of Esoteric Order of Cookies.
The Sublime Prince of the Esoteric Order of Cookies.
Sorry, esoteric. Thank you.
If you do a Google, it's not too far off to see that the Sublime Prince is the title of the top of the food chain for Freemasons. So it's kind of secret society stuff.
Okay.
That's all you get.
I'll take it.
Yeah,
I'll take that.
It's not me being an egomaniac calling myself the Sublime Prince. It actually has some historical reference.
Excellent. Best-selling cookie.
Chocolate chip is the gateway. So chocolate chip is probably always going to be a number one. There's still a lot of people that will come visit and they know there's a limit of 6 cookies per person and they want to get 6 chocolate chip, and I'm begging them not to. But the only mistake you can make at Gideon's Bakehouse is get 6 of the same flavor, because there are really 4 cookies per cookie, and that's a lot of the same flavor. Like, be adventurous, have some fun. We're not throwing anything crazy at you. There's no rose water lavender, cookies. They're flavors, maybe sometimes in a combination you might not have expected, like a peanut butter cold brew, for example, or mixing white chocolate with coffee. But we wouldn't put it out there if we didn't think it was the best that we knew how to do. And that's always the Gideon's promise. Like, mediocrity is my enemy. Is everything that we put out there, you'll never hear anyone say, that's good enough. It's got to be like, okay, that's the best that we've pushed ourselves as far as we can within the limits of needing to release things on a certain date. I hope that when I'm 90 I'm better at it than I am now, but yeah, we do our best to put some fun stuff out there. We wouldn't as long as you don't have an allergy, try it.
Awesome. That's the whole point. Have fun with it.
Yeah,
it's experience. Have fun. Best-selling cake.
We are known, and the first award I won was for red velvet cake. So we're known for being one of the few places left that still make a true Southern buttermilk red velvet cake. We do not make a chocolate cake with red food coloring. It's a true buttermilk cake. And a lot of people who love red velvet have never had the real thing. So that one just, the word of mouth on that is fantastic. But it's tough to say because it depends on what cakes we put out there. It's easy to
Sure.
say the red velvet is the best selling because we make it every day. But the chocolate cakes rotate. The double frosted cakes that are available at Gideon's at Disney Springs rotate all the time. Like I love the peanut butter banana double frosted cake.
Ooh.
I love the key lime pie cake. One of our least favorite cakes as far as pre-orders go for whole cakes is the Annie's Mint cookies and cream cake, and that is my favorite. It's just perfect. Like I love that cake.
Wow. You would think that that would be, kind of just an automatic give me.
You would think, but there's people that are really like mint seems to be more divisive than I would have thought it would be. I'll get people that'll be like, mint's for toothpaste. Like,
If you say so. I was just drinking a mint tea beforehand, so.
There you
go. I have to tell you this though. When I come down in August, hold a slice of the red velvet aside for my wife because she loves red velvet cake. So.
I will promise you that as long as she arrives and before the last couple hours of the day, it'll be waiting for
her. All right. I guess let me 2 last questions then. How do people find out about the secret menu items?
Follow us on Instagram or Facebook. So secret menu items might only come up 2 or 3 times a month. Maybe sometimes not at all if we're really, really, really busy. But secret menu items, like when I talk about experience, I mean, I'm obsessed with experience of the guests. I'm trying to have a good experience for myself, but I'm also trying to create great experiences for my team, for my internal family. Mm-hmm. If you're a baker at Gideon's Bakehouse, I want you to be creative, and I don't want you to just make that red velvet cake every day and do the same thing. I'm very open to, would it be cool if we did this? And my hope is the answer is yes. Let's release that as a secret item and see how it does. That's why a lot of those secret things are just there once and never again. It's just something that we just threw out there to let a baker explore their own creativity. And I will admit it's been hard to do secret items as we're adjusting to all of the ebb and flow of learning our new volume. Because obviously the number one priority is make sure we have enough cakes for the store every day. And I'm really happy to say that cakes do really well at Disney Springs, and most people think of us as just cookies, and that's starting to change. Like I'm over the moon that the peanut butter cold brew and that the cold brew in general is doing so well. I hear it constantly. I was really nervous to do coffee, and I don't drink any hot coffee at all. I'm a weird one. I love a good balanced cold brew. I've been obsessed with it for years. Pastry and a cold brew is life for me, and that's how I want to spend my afternoons, is trying to find that perfect croissant, and have it with a perfectly balanced cold brew. So even our base cold brew is oat milk, maple syrup, and an amazing local roasted bean from our friends at Lineage Coffee Roasting, and it's the cold brew I've been dreaming of my whole life. It's what I've been chasing. So I have the positive and negative of having my favorite cold brew being my own, so it's free. And every time I show up at Gideon's Bakehouse, I can just drink. Caffeine doesn't really affect me, so I can just go and just keep drinking that cold brew. And I love the standard cold brew when I'm just having a drink. I just want that cold brew. When I'm having a cookie, I'm obsessed with the peanut butter cold brew is meant to be paired with like a triple chocolate cookie. And then we do a ginger snap cold brew that is just married to that coffee cake cookie in the morning. And that might be my favorite combo of things in the stores. I actually had to ban myself from eating a coffee cake cookie every time I showed up, because every morning I was having a coffee cake cookie cold brew, and that's not. I don't advise it for breakfast every day.
Maybe not every day.
Pace yourself a little bit, yeah.
So, planning anything to celebrate Halloween? My friend said that is a popular holiday for you.
Yes, it's our busiest month of the year. Halloween is the birthday of Gideon's Bakehouse because the original location opened in October. So it's a celebration every month. It's also the release of our most popular cookie, the Frankenstein cookie, which is a cookie filled with double stuffed Oreos, a couple of different chocolates, and then just packed with like an entire store-bought bag of M&Ms. Like there's
Oh
so
wow.
many M&Ms on top. It's really popular, and I have no shame in telling everyone, and I say it often, my least favorite cookie. So it's funny to me that the most popular thing we make is the one that I will not eat. It's just too much. But it's also so hard to make. So my staff hates it. M&Ms, they want to move in a different way on the cookie, and I want to make sure that every cookie looks like the photo that I've taken, and that one challenges us
I'm
because
sure.
it likes to bake in different ways, and Florida's very humid, so that's the biggest negative for you moving down here is for me with my mop of long hair, there's a lot of bad hair days, but there's also humidity that'll build up on the cookie. So even as we transport the dough to be fresh baked in the store, if any condensation gets on those M&Ms, now it's a pastel color instead of the full color, and
Right.
that's devastating to me. But it's so hard to work around it because of just the nature of where we live. That's I love seeing people walking around Disney Springs holding their Gideon's Bakehouse bags, but I also know that they're ruining them by walking around all day carrying their Gideon's Bakehouse cookies because the condensation will cause blooming on that chocolate, and it ruins it visually. The taste is going to be fantastic, but I like my cookies to stay pretty.
Sure. Sure. It's your artwork, of course.
Hmm.
And I guess the final question: what's next for the bakery?
Uh,
That you're at liberty to say.
yeah, so I I love talking to other business owners, and I don't claim by any stretch of the imagination to be any kind of business expert. I am not that. So I like to talk about it. One of the things that I talk about a lot is letting your business be your business. Listen, I spend a lot of time listening to Gideon's Bakehouse. What does Gideon want? Not what's best for me and what promotes me is uh is not what matters. It's what the bakery wants. So, originally I opened up Gideon's and I thought it would be, cinnamon rolls in the morning and, have some fun pastries and all this. And Gideon said, "No, you make cookies. You make cookies, bro. That's all you're doing." And that's what I did. Is the empire was built off of the cookie, and now it's letting me expand a little bit more and have some fun. So in the short term, uh, the only desire that I think Gideon has is to survive its first year and learn and grow. Um, I think from talking to me, you might easily guess that I have no desire to franchise or do a bunch of things. But I'm curious to see how I could grow and where would be another amazing space. Nothing will ever be as big as what I just happened.
Hmm.
Going from a 286 square foot space to Gideon's at Disney Springs is the biggest jump I will ever make. Uh, Anything else kind of makes sense now. It's like it's a golden key. I can think about and try to go anywhere. Uh, so we talk a lot about it as a team, and I love the idea of going to another country and the challenge of what that looks like. I'm certainly in the short term excited to do more fun things artistically,
Hmm.
more fun characters, more interesting limited edition merchandise, um, maybe a Gideon's art event.
That would be nice.
Those things are things that we're talking about now. So in the short term, it's exploring the expanding the creativity that the audience, the increased audience, has allowed us to have. And in the long term, it's about what's the next real challenge that gets to push me and my team forward and growing as individuals and doing something fun with the bakery that we haven't done yet.
Awesome. That's great to hear. And I can't wait to see what happens next. I can't wait to eat what happens next. And wish you all the best of success. I am so happy for you that you've gotten to this point. And being able to open, especially the Disney Springs, to be that kind of dream, that vision that you had, and more, that you're able to realize that. I've only heard wonderful and good things about your products, and this is coming from like all the food blogs and vlogs and stuff online and whatnot. I've heard wonderful things. I cannot, like I said, wait till when I get there to finally try it in person. Steve, we've talked about the Instagram, we talked about the Facebook. Let my audience know where they can find all these things, the web address.
I mean, all things happen at Gideon's Bakehouse. So if you type in, Gideon's Bakehouse on Instagram, boom, we're going to pop up. Gideon's Bakehouse on Facebook, boom, it's there. Gideon'sBakehouse.com, Shazam, there's all the information you can need. I highly encourage people to follow us on social media. That's the one thing that's different about the two locations is, like, if I post something that's limited edition, it sells out in like 15 seconds at East End Market because 100% of the guests that we have at East End Market, that's our community. They all follow us, 100% of them on social media. Obviously, the Disney audience is much, much bigger. So now we're talking much smaller percentage. And a lot of those people miss out. But also, they don't have the proper expectations of visiting us. So I highly encourage people to, one, see all these fun things that we do. There's things that are coming up, just in a this month that we've never done before that will come and go super fast.
Sure.
That I'm
Cookie
really,
dip was
really,
one of them.
really excited about. There's, of course, we talked about the secret items that are there, but more importantly, to a lot of people, the expectation of visiting. If you're upset with me because there's a 5-hour wait on a Saturday, you probably don't follow me on social media because you haven't read our fact sheet that's at the top, or you haven't visited the website that talks about, there's a big thing right on our Disney Springs page that says things to know before your first visit at Gideon's Bakehouse at Disney Springs. And it's all there. What our average wait times are on specific days, where to sign up for our virtual queue. I don't want to disappoint anybody. I'm a giver. I want to give everybody an amazing experience. And the best way I can create an experience for you in advance is to have those conversations with you on social media. And I'm very accessible. People that want to talk about it, that have questions. I'm going to answer your questions if you DM me on Instagram. I'm going to answer your email. It might take a little while sometimes, but I'm gonna get to it. I can't let anyone else run my social media. I love taking the photos. I love talking to everybody. It really helps me to have a good understanding of where Gideon's is at in the minds of others. So it's super helpful. Yep, and the cat agrees with that as well.
Absolutely. Steve, thank you so much for coming on and talking about...
Thank you, my brother. I warned you we were going to talk for a while.
I don't have a problem with it. It's a text message I got about dinner. That's a whole different thing. But
comics and cookies is just, that's my weakness.
My pleasure. Thank you again so much.
Thank you so much.
Big shout out and thank you to Steve from Gideon's Bakehouse again. Steve Lewis, thank you for joining us. Again, this is a rewind of sorts. But some of you, it may be the first time hearing it. What do you want to try at Gideon's Bakehouse? Do you want to try some cookies, cakes, cold brew, everything? Let me know. If you've been there, what is your favorites? Let us know. Again, social networks everywhere at WD Magiccast, as I mentioned at the top of the show. Again, thank you Thank you all for listening. Thank you for your time. I know how little time we all have, and the fact that we get to spend some of this time together means a lot to me, a lot to us here at the WD Magiccast crew and family. Please go on to Apple Podcasts, go on to Spotify, rate and review the show. The more ratings and reviews we get, the more that they will do to promote the show. And you can do your part too. Share out a link to social networks on the social networks. Let people know about the WD Magiccast or about the episode you're listening to. Tag us in so we can thank you personally. Tell your friends, tell your families, tell everybody. The more people that join our family, the better. Walt believed in a big Disney family, and so do I. Don't forget to subscribe to the show while you're at it. This way you always know when new episodes are posted. And while you're at it, consider becoming a premium subscriber. Truly help the show help the show out, because not everything is free. You can do this. The links are all in the show notes, plus the links to the social media is in the show notes as well. Because remember, this show is brought to you by listeners like you. Whatever you're facing out there, whatever troubles, hard times are upon you, don't give up. Never give up, never give in. I know the light is difficult to see, and at times it feels like it's not there at all. Believe me, it's there. It's always there. It may be hiding. It may be really challenging to find. But keep looking. Keep digging deep inside. There is a light. Follow its warmth. Follow its brightness. It will lead you to better things. It may not be the things that you want, but it's probably the things you need. Never give up, and don't forget, there's people out there that want to help you. You may not know them, you may not have even met them yet, or you may not even think that's the person. But sometimes it just takes that first step to ask for help, to begin a whole new journey. Because you're good enough, you're smart enough, you are worth it. There's one of you in this world, and that's for a reason. Now I'd like to end this week's show with a quote from Walt Disney himself. The theater of education will be any marketplace, public square, hill, or dale where power can be found to project a motion picture on a screen. Again, that's Walt Disney, everyone. Thank you again for listening, and I'll see you next time.